Hi, good evening class. Today I'm going to be going over the study guide, but I'm going to go over a select number of problems because these are the ones that I want you to focus on for the test. So I know we went over number 1 and number 2 in class, so I'm going to go ahead and skip to number 5, okay, because you're going to have a similar question like this on the test. So number 5 says a newspaper carrier can deliver 49 papers in 1 hour. So we're going to go ahead and again, we want to underline our important information, okay? And then we want to circle and figure out what are we trying to figure out. So the question here, it says, at this rate, how many newspapers can the carrier deliver in 3 hours? Okay, so our problem is focusing on 3 hours, right? How many papers can they deliver in 3 hours? So this helps us to figure out how to set up our table. Okay, so on the top, since we're looking for hours, I'm going to put hours on the top. Okay, and on the bottom is going to be our other values. So we put hours on the top, papers would have to be on the bottom. Okay, and then on the first column, we're going to write the first piece of information that's given to us. So in 1 hour, they can deliver 49 papers. And remember, we want to see the relationship between the top row and the bottom row. Okay, so looking at how they got from the top to the bottom, I have to think of what times 1 would make 49. So in this case, it would be 49. So I'm going to write my constant. So I'm constantly multiplying by 49. And then the next 2 columns, remember, you're going to choose 2 numbers that you want to add to your table. So I can choose, let's say 5. And I could also add 6 to my table. The last slot, remember, is going to be reserved for your answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill in the next 2 columns. So to get from 5 to the bottom column, again, you have to do times 49. To get from 6 to the bottom column, same thing, it's times 49. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and multiply your 49 times 5. Okay, and that would be, oh, wrong color. That would be 245. Okay, and then your 6 times 49 be 294. Now the question part that we circled, that would go in the green box here. So in 3 hours, how many papers can they deliver? So same thing, we have to take 3 times our constant, which is 49. And then 3 times 49 is 147. So he can deliver 147 papers in 3 hours. Alright, and then moving on to question 6. On a road map, 1 inch represents 30 miles. Oops. Okay, so same thing. This is important. We need to know how many inches represents how many miles. What we're trying to figure out is how much would 3.5 inches represent. So inches is what we're looking for. So on our table, I'm going to go ahead and write inches for our top column, or top row, sorry. And then on the bottom is going to be our other label, which is miles. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and again in the first column, I'm going to fill in the information they gave us, which is 1 inch represents 30 miles. Okay, so again, you need to first find out what your constant is. So we're going from 1 to 30. So in this case, it's times 30. Which means everything gets multiplied by 30. Okay, and then in the last box, I'm going to put a square, a rectangle, and to show that's where my answer is going to go. So what I'm looking for my answer is 3.5. So I could go ahead and fill in the top row with my 3.5 inches. The other two columns that you have, again, you're going to choose any numbers that you want to put there. So I'm just choosing 2 and 5. So to get the bottom row, you have to multiply the top row by 30. So 2 times 30 would be 60 for this column. The next one would be 5 times 30, so 150. Okay, and then the last column for our answer box, we're going to do 3.5 times 30. 3.5 times 30 would give me 105. So on a map, 3.5 inches would represent 105 miles. Okay, the next one we're going to go to is number 7 here. Jackie's car gets 18 miles per gallon. How many gallons of gas would be required for Jackie's car to travel 108 miles? So we're focusing on miles. So miles will be the top of our table. Then on the bottom would be your gallons. Okay. Then again, the first column is going to be the information they gave us. So 18 miles per gallon. Remember, per refers to 1 gallon. So in 18 miles, I will use up 1 gallon of gas. So let's look at the relationship here. From the top to bottom, you're going from 18 to 1. So remember, you're going to be constantly dividing by a number or constantly multiplying. Since it's going to a smaller number, we know we're dividing. Now I have to think, 18 divided by what makes 1? In this case, it would be 18. Okay, which means every single number on the top gets divided by 18 to get the bottom number. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and choose 2 numbers here. Let's do 40. Again, these don't matter what you choose, but you do need to fill it in your table. Okay, so I'm going to do 40 divided by 18. That gives me 2.2, repeating. Then I have 60 divided by 18, 3.3, repeating. And then our last column is reserved for our answer. So we want to know 108 miles, how many gallons we'll need. So you're going to take 108 divided by 18, and that would give us 6. So it would take 6 gallons of gas to travel 108 miles. Okay. All right, so now let's get into our triangles here. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to move on to number 9. Okay, so number 9, I realize A and B is kind of the same, so we're talking about a ratio. So A and B kind of go together here. We're looking for the ratio, so meaning how much did they enlarge it by? Did they do 2 times as much, right? 3 times as much? So we need to figure out what our corresponding sides are. So I'm going to go ahead and circle them. 3 goes with the 12 here. Okay. 5 goes with our question mark here. And then red, I'm going to circle my 4 and 16. So here are my corresponding sides. Remember, those are the ones that are matching up. So looking here, what is the ratio of side lengths of triangle XYZ to triangle LMN? So how is it changing? So looking at the blue sides, I can see, well, going from 3 to 12, what did they need to do? Well, they had to divide. Sorry, not divide. They had to multiply by 4, right? 3 times 4 is 12. Now remember, it's always either multiplying by a certain number or you're dividing by a certain number, never adding or subtracting here. Okay? And we can also look at the red sides to determine, are we multiplying by 4? Let's see. So to get from 4 to 16, indeed it is also times 4. So I know to get that missing side, I would also need to multiply by 4. So let's first write down our ratio. So again, ratio is written as a fraction here. So again, it got enlarged 4 times as much. So one way I can write the ratio is 4 to 1. You can write it as a fraction 4 over 1. Or you can also write it 4 to 1. Okay? Those are our ratio. And then for C, we're going to calculate the missing side. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in green. So again, you're going 5 times your scale factor, or your ratio, which is 4. Okay? All the other sides got multiplied by 4, so 5 also needs to get multiplied by 4. So the missing side would be 20. Okay? Then number 10 is the same thing. You're finding what x equals and then what y equals. So I'm going to go ahead and also again mark my corresponding sides. The 9 goes with my x. The 15 goes with my y. And then my 16 goes with 32 here. Okay, so now looking at our corresponding sides, there's only one pair of sides that's going to help me find out the other missing sides, which is my 16 and my 32 here. So to get from 16 to 32, I have to think, what did they multiply 16 by? Oh, they multiplied it by 2. Which tells me everything from the ABC triangle also has to get multiplied by 2. So to get my x here, I have to take my 9 and multiply it by 2. 9 times 2 would give you 18, right? So we know x equals 18. Okay, so same thing for the blue side. You're going from 15 to y. Same thing, you're going to have to take 15 and multiply it by 2. And we can see that equals 30. So then y equals 30. Okay. All right. And then the next few problems I'm going to do would be number 12 is the next one I want you guys to focus on. So I know I did A in class, so I'm going to kind of focus on B here. So whenever it says without parentheses, remember I want you to distribute. Okay, so write it using distributive property. So looking at B, you can see my distributive property expression is located here, right? You have your x plus 2 in parentheses. Outside of the parentheses, you have your negative 3. Okay, so what we need to do, remember we talked about it needs to be a double rainbow because you have to take the number outside of the parentheses, which is your negative 3, and multiply it by each number inside of the parentheses. So negative 3 times x would just be negative 3x. Then we do negative 3 times 2. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. So I'm going to write plus negative 6. Okay? And then I'm going to kind of bring down my 9 here. And I'm going to add it onto my expression. So my simplified expression would be negative 3x. And then again, I can combine my negative 6 with my 9 because they are like terms. So negative 6 plus 9 would give me 3. So this expression simplified completely would be negative 3x plus 3. Okay? Alright. So I'm going to review number 13 as well one more time. So anytime you think of a number, I don't want you to actually choose a number. You're going to use x to represent that number. Now when it says double it, double means times 2. So what we want to do with x is multiply it by 2. Now another way we can say x times 2 would be to write it as 2x, right? That means the same thing. 2x means 2 times x. Now the next part says I need to add 4. So far I have 2x and I need to add 4 to it, so I'm going to add a plus 4. Then it says to multiply by 5. Now where it says multiply by 5, it means the whole thing needs to get multiplied by 5. So I need to take my 2x plus 4, group it together, so stick it inside parentheses so we know it goes together, and then I want to multiply it by 5. So I would put my 5 on the outside, right? This represents taking 2x plus 4, multiplying it by 5. Okay, then the next part says I need to write it without parentheses, so I have to take my expression and again use distributive property to rewrite it without parentheses. So here 5 times 2x gives me 10x. Okay, then the 5 times the 4 gives me 20. So my final expression would be 10x plus 20. Okay. And then for number 14, the one I want to focus on is A. Okay. So when we're simplifying expressions, it means we want to combine our like terms. So it's very helpful if you have like a color to kind of color code our like terms. So we know x squares we can combine with other x squares, right? Our x's we can combine with our other x's. And then our 1's we can combine with our 1's. Okay, so looking at the green first, I'm going to combine our x squares. So that means I'm taking 6x squared and combining, so adding the 2x squared. Okay, and then this gives me 8x squared. Okay, then looking at the blue, I have negative 2x, and I'm going to combine it with my negative 7x. Okay, I know it says minus, but remember you have to think of it as a negative. This is negative 2x, not minus 2x, right? This is negative 7x, not minus 7x. So we're really taking two negatives, adding it together, which gives us a total of negative 9x. Okay, and then same with our 1's, we're taking 5 positives and combining it, so adding negative 11 negatives. Okay, if you need to, always you can draw a picture. So what I have here as the final expression would be 8x squared plus negative 9x. Remember, I'm just writing parentheses to kind of separate my negative and my plus sign, and then plus my negative 6. Okay? Alright, and then the last one that I'm going to go over for today will be number 16 that I want you guys to focus on. So number 16, this is something we went over yesterday on how to simplify expressions when you have positives and you have negatives, right? We talked about zero pairs. So what makes a zero pair is one positive and then one negative tile, right? So if I have a positive 1 tile and a and a negative 1 tile, I can circle this and say this becomes 0, right? Same idea applies for your x tiles. If you have a positive x tile, which is a shaded tile on your screen, see if I could do like a shaded color. Can't. Let's just put, I'm going to put a plus, oh, this, there we go, is shaded. And then if you pair it up with another x tile, but this time it's the opposite, right? Meaning this is the negative. We can also say this is a zero pair, and that makes 0, right? And it has to be the same type of tile. So you can't just match up an X tile with a 1 tile, right? It has to be 2 X tiles of opposite colors, right? 2 of the 1 tiles of opposite colors that you can pair up. Okay, so what you have to do in your picture here is you have to first cross out your 0 pairs. So looking on the left side, I only have 1 0 pair. I have this tile and this tile that I can pair up. Okay, no other 0 pairs because I can't pair up the shaded X's. That doesn't make 0. It has to be opposite colors, right? So on the bottom, I'm just going to write, what do I have left? I have 3 positive X's left, so that's 3 X's. Then I just have 1 of the white tiles. Remember, if it's blank, that represents negative. So what I have left here is 3 X's and 1 negative, so negative 1. 3x plus negative 1. On the right side, you can see I do have a lot of 0 pairs. I have 1 0 pair here, right? 1 shaded, 1 unshaded X, that makes 0. You have another unshaded and shaded X, that makes 0. And then you have a couple of the 1 tiles that you can pair up. You have 1 unshaded and then another shaded. So here I just crossed out all my 0 pairs. Underneath, you're going to write what you have left. So you have 3 X's and they're positive. So positive 3x. And then you have 1, 2 of the blank ones, and that would be negative 2. So here are my 2 expressions. On the left, you have 3x plus negative 1. On the right, you have 3x plus negative 2. Now it says state which side is greater. Okay, and how do we know? Well, we can say that the left side is greater because they both have the same amount of x's, but they don't have the same amount of negatives. Now you have to compare those negative numbers. Negative 1 is greater than negative 2. Okay, so that's how we can tell that the left side is greater. Okay. All right, so if you have any other questions about the study guide, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll try to answer it as soon as possible. But again, the questions that I went over, those are the ones that I want you to focus on for tomorrow. Okay, so study for your test. Good luck tomorrow. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.